6:36 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Dan Mandis here. Appreciate you being here for a Friday, January 31st, along with KGB, Jeff Malinoff, Joan Jones in the dust-encrusted WTN newsroom, going over some of the more relevant audio from Tulsi Gabbard as she was going through her Senate confirmation hearings yesterday.
Senator, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will work with you to make sure that there is not another Snowden-like leak.
Media. It's not a moment to propagate theories, conspiracy theories, or attacks on journalism in the United States. This is when you need to answer the questions of the people whose votes you're asking for to be confirmed as the chief intelligence officer of this nation.
And Jonathan Fahey, that question was to Tulsi Gabbard. Do you believe that Edward Snowden is brave? Do you believe that Edward Snowden is a hero, as she had said before? And the problem that I have with these discussions, Jonathan, is that this is not a yes or no question. It's a very nuanced conversation with a lot of layers and a lot of context. And what they're trying to do is pin her down to a yes or no question. And Jonathan, I'm going to ask you to comment on that after this one final soundbite.
Senator, as someone who has served in
yes or no, is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America?
As someone who has worn our uniform in combat, I understand how critical our national security is.
Apparently you don't. Apparently you don't. Let me ask you.
So, Jonathan, they are really trying to pin her down in a yes or no statement. And I realize this is how these senators do things, but it seems to me like they're just making themselves look bad.
I think that's exactly right, and that's my takeaway from almost all of these hearings is they end up looking like out of control, hysterical, and the nominees, the Trump nominees, particularly Tulsi Gabbard, look in control and command of the facts. And whenever you do that little trick, like yes or no, and not allow somebody to explain, it's, you know, it just seems like, well, if you're really trying to get information from the witness, you'd allow them to explain, well, yes, but here's the context I was talking about. That would be helpful for people to understand where the witness is coming from. But of course, they don't want to do that. And that's the game. And we see it on the Hill, really, for both sides playing that game. And most of it is them grandstanding and then throw, like, you know, like what they're doing with Kash Patel. Let me put part of a quote up and ask you about it. And it's like, you know, they're missing the point. And I think they're missing the point with all of these nominees, which is Trump wants people that are not the status quo, and that if the Democrats would at least acknowledge, hey, the status quo hasn't worked very well, so at least go in with that sort of underlying premise, but they won't even agree to that. They act like everything was hunky-dory with the last administration, which is astonishing.
Well, and, you know, these intelligence agencies, deep state Washington, D.C., interfering in elections like they did in 2020, they don't like Tulsi Gabbard because she is on the side, in my opinion, of protecting the American people and not their way of doing business. And they did finally kind of sort of allow her to answer.
If I may just finish my thoughts, Senator. In this role that I've been nominated for, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will be responsible for protecting our nation's secrets. And I have 4 immediate steps that I would take to prevent another Snowden-like leak.
Ma'am, I would simply ask.
So she did acknowledge that Snowden broke the law, but she's also been attacked by these very same agencies that Donald Trump wants her to lead. This is obviously very unconventional for Washington, D.C. Based on what you've seen, do you think that Tulsi Gabbard is going to be confirmed?
I think so. After yesterday, I thought she handled herself pretty well. You know, what I see just sort of like Twitter, it makes it seem like she's the one that, you know, that seems the closest, but she handled everything, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw a lot of clips throughout the day, and she handled everything quite well and seemed to really be knowledgeable of the issues facing the country. So I think, you know, she really deserves to be confirmed. And again, you know, the status quo wasn't working. We have intelligence community and a lot of our law enforcement agencies were focusing on things that didn't matter the most to the American people. You know, that, you know, we always talk about, you know, the FBI with misinformation and all of these things. So, you know, they really do need to shake things up. And she seems like the person that could do so, but do so in a competent way, because they are, everyone has to acknowledge they're doing a lot of good things too. So we don't want to burn the whole place down, but she does seem like she could handle the job pretty well, but it remains to be seen. And it does seem like that's my guess is the closest one as of now, but I haven't seen any Republicans break ranks that I'm aware of.
One of the things I find really interesting with all of this is, not to relitigate the whole Edward Snowden thing, but when that all came down in 2013, I know for a lot of Americans, it was the first awareness of what some of these intelligence and deep state government agencies were up to with the spying on the American people, and to the extent that there was spying on us. And I think that Edward Snowden really was one of the first guys that broke through the wall and really clued a lot of America in to what was going on. And I don't know, it doesn't really seem like the intelligence agencies, they did make a lot of adjustments and they made a lot of changes after Edward Snowden. But I still don't think the American people trust the intelligence agencies, because part of what we always talk about is the 51 current and former intelligence agents who said that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. So it's like they can't help themselves.
Yeah, that was really a low point for anyone that served in these leadership roles in the intelligence agencies, because they put their names and their former positions on the letter for purely political purposes, and it wasn't even true. I mean, that's the amazing part. It's really bad even if it was true, but it was false. So it's truly astonishing. And these were the very highest level people from years and years, or not necessarily everyone, but it was all the household names. So yeah, that really was a low point. And we've seen that with law enforcement, and we've seen that with the DOJ, that there's been too much politicization. And it's almost like they're afraid that, Kash Patel or one of these people will go back to the way of just enforcing the law and putting criminals in jail. It's almost like they don't like doing that part of the job anymore. It's like they're so into all of the other things.
You mentioned Kash Patel, and he went through his confirmation hearings as well yesterday. My favorite moment was when he and Amy Klobuchar were going back and forth.
This is why snippets of information are often misleading and detrimental to this committee's advice and consent process.
If you consent, I would love to have 5 hours of questions, and then I could read the whole transcript.
You've got 2 minutes.
Wow.
I love that. I mean, he totally puts Amy Klobuchar right in her place. You've got 2 minutes, and she acknowledges that she has just been put in her place, and she says, wow. But again, just like with Tulsi Gabbard, Jonathan Fahey, I just don't believe that Kash Patel, he's not kissing their collective arse.
Yeah, I thought it was outstanding. I thought he handled himself quite well. He didn't give an inch, but he also showed his commitment to really doing what the FBI should be doing, which is not being political, going after the criminals, which is what most of the American people want. I think absent of, a handful of, people high levels of the Democratic Party. But I think most people really do want what Kash Patel wants. And he expressed his commitment to doing so. I think he's going to get in there, and this DOJ, they're going to go back to arresting criminals and putting politics aside, and the American people will see that. And it's almost like the Democrats don't want that, oddly, because it's but their fears, all of their fears happen to be projecting what they've done for the last 4 years, which is, it's obvious, but it's still worth saying again and again. It's like everything they accuse them of doing is what they've been doing. It's like the DOJ has been highly politicized, and the worst part about it is they've neglected their regular duties of putting criminals in jail, and we've seen crime skyrocket, particularly in Washington, D.C., where most of their efforts have been focused on January 6th for the last 4 years at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and crime went through the roof, even higher on average than other cities that were going up, and it just started to go down last year. But it's pretty amazing that if they're really looking out for what they should be doing, which is public safety and not advancing political agendas, I think Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, they're righting the ship, and it's going to be better.
Got some big Pam Bondi news coming up next. Jonathan Fahey is joining us here on Super Talk 99.7. So we're going to talk about illegal immigration straight ahead. So, Jonathan, a couple of, as we segue to illegal immigration, there's a lot going on with this. Obviously, mass deportation is underway. President Donald Trump now saying that he wants to open Gitmo for some of these bad guys. And one of the things that Trump said is that he doesn't trust these nations to simply allow these murderers and rapists to come right back into our country. What do you think about Trump opening up Gitmo?
I think it's a very good idea. We have all the space. We created this place to house prisoners and dangerous prisoners initially for all of the terrorists that many of them, unfortunately, Joe Biden has released. So I think there's only a handful there anymore. So there is a facility that's safe to keep them and also safe for them. You know, I'm sure people know, but there was a lot of money put into that to make sure it's safe and a humane place for people to be housed for long periods of time. So I think it's a great idea. And, you know, we saw with the Colombia issue, this weekend, how quickly a lot of these nations will cave and take their people back. So my guess is the number of people that won't be taken back will be relatively small. It won't be insignificant, but I think most of them, and even with these countries that have been fighting the U.S., meaning fighting, taking people back under, you know, the Biden administration and previous administrations, they may not want to tangle with Donald Trump, particularly right now on this, because I think he will make them pay. And like we said before, they're going to, you know, countries are going to cooperate or they're going to wish they had. And, you know, I think once somebody's made an example of, the other countries will probably get in line. So it probably won't be as many people detained as I think the media is portraying, because they're, you know, it's people get arrested, they get processed, they get removed. So it'll be sort of this, I don't want to say revolving door because they won't be coming back, but it's sort of a continuous process of people going through the system. And I think it's a good idea. We'll use what's available to house people, because these are, by and large, very dangerous people, and we don't want them on the streets of America. I mean, the Biden administration did, and a lot of the Democratic sanctuary cities want them, but the American people deserve better, and they deserve safety. And Donald Trump seems that, you know, he is committed to doing so.
I think the problem that some folks have is that we've been complaining about how these terrorists at Gitmo, I mean, they get their halal meals, they get their prayer rugs, they get their exercise rooms. And so my concern is that these bad guys are going to get access to really what has been the good life for a lot of these terrorists at Gitmo. I want these guys to serve hard time. So I hope that they're going to take away a lot of these amenities that the terrorists were getting.
Yeah, it really has been, you know, the Gitmo soccer camp, you know, which is amazing that we've had the worst of the worst serving their time in the best possible facilities, also probably with good weather and, you know,
yeah.
in the, you know, near the ocean. So it is the whole thing with we could do a whole segment on the terrorists, how well they've been treated, and particularly under Joe Biden. But yeah, I don't think it'll be hard time. And, you know, the good thing about it is that one part of it is we want to take away the other side's ability to complain. So they're going to look for any given sort of any abuse, anything like that to elevate it, and the media will run with it. So the good thing is, if they are being held in places that are safe, that are safe, that are clean, other things like that, it takes a lot of the ammunition away from the other side. And you're right. Do they deserve sort of, you know, 5-star treatment for years and years? Probably not. But overall, I think it's still a good thing to just, you know, the main goal is move people out and prevent people from coming in. And it seems like they're doing both of those pretty well right now.
You're right. I mean, if they're in Gitmo, then they're not raping, pillaging, murdering, or dealing drugs. So overall, it is a very good thing, and that's where we will leave it. Jonathan Fahey, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Always great to have his perspective.